What's up, guys? I'm your host, Tim Galligan. Welcome to the Ghost of Real Estate. Today starts season number 3, episode number 1. We have a very special guest, Evan Centopani. Evan is a professional bodybuilder, financial advisor with Charter Oak. Evan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Tim. It's cool to be here. I've never been on a real estate podcast before.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming, man. I appreciate it. It means a lot.
Dude, anytime, of course.
Cool. So, I'm going to get right into it on the bodybuilding side. I guess first question is, how did you get into the world of bodybuilding?
Yeah, so unlike a lot of guys who end up in the sport who maybe come from a background where they're athletes, and for a lot of guys, it's like, well, I used to play football or I used to wrestle, I got injured, so I took up lifting and really loved it, and one thing led to another, started bodybuilding. For myself, I didn't come from a background as an athlete. To be totally honest, I was just a really fat, overweight kid, and always embarrassed and kind of ashamed of my appearance. And my whole childhood, dude, I just wanted to be thin. So going into high school, I kind of forced myself to start running, and I worked my way up to running 6 miles a day and, changing the way I ate. And I took like 70 pounds off my body, dude. In 8th grade, I was like 2 and a quarter. So
Really?
yeah, I was a big kid, man. Uh, so yeah, I couldn't run like a mile in gym class or any of that. So I peeled that weight off, and dude, really for the first time in my life, I felt kind of comfortable in my own skin, but I still didn't really look the way I wanted to. In my head, I'm like, oh, I'm going to be shredded and have an 8-pack, and I didn't really look that way. So I'm like, I think I need to start lifting weights. And when I started lifting weights, in my uncle's basement, I'd ride my bicycle over to his house, and I realized I had a propensity for it, and I just started gaining muscle. And I'm like, wow, I really like this. And I continued it through the rest of high school, throughout college, got out of college, and got talked into doing a contest by my weight training partner. It was a guy who's about 10 years older than me. He was a competitive bodybuilder, and he's like, you got to do it, even if you do it just one time. So, yeah, man, it was just going to be a one-time thing, and the rest is history.
That's awesome. What happened at that competition?
So I was 23, and I was getting ready for a pretty large regional show. It was called the Atlantic States, and it's held in Manhattan. And for anybody who follows bodybuilding, they know that kind of the Northeast is a pretty strong bodybuilding area between Connecticut, New York, New Jersey. You've got a lot of good competitors for whatever reason in that one area. So I was told going into that show, oh, it's too big of a show for your first one. You shouldn't do it. And I didn't really care, man. I just did it. And I came in at the very top of the heavyweight class. And I ended up winning the heavyweight division, and I won the overall. So I was totally blown away.
So that wasn't your last show, was it?
So, but it's funny because even then I went back to work on Monday. At the time, I was a title searcher. I worked for a law firm, and I had no intention of taking it any further. It was just I was really happy to see the way I looked, and it was a cool accomplishment. One of the best things about it, dude, was seeing my dad in the audience. As somebody who was always like, "Why are you doing that? Why are you dedicating all that time to it?" And all the Sunday dinners I wouldn't take part in, and kind of all the ball breaking, and it's I think in his mind it was kind of stupid, um, but when he saw me up there and compete against other guys, and I just remember him and my uncle being right up at the front screaming.
That's awesome.
And that was one of the coolest things. And after that, like I said, it was only going to be a one-time thing, but I just kind of kept getting talked into it, and I just said, well, let me do one more. Let me do one more.
Nice. So now you said your first competition was 23. So you've been competing, or I know you recently stopped competing, right?
Yeah.
So for about 2 decades, right?
Yeah. So I was 23 when I did my first show. I came up very quickly. I was lucky to climb really fast. So I turned pro. I won the U.S. Nationals on my 4th show. So in 2007, I was the #1 amateur in the United States.
Wow.
So that qualified me for professional status. And dude, by that time I already had sponsorships. I had a contract with a magazine. a bodybuilding magazine. I was under contract with a supplement company, which was pretty rare, as an amateur and kind of really only having been in it for a couple of years. So I was already making money from it, but I still had my full-time job. So this was 2007. Enter 2008 when the real estate, market took a crap and the stock market took a shit. Not a whole lot was happening. So I
Right.
was, as a title searcher, kind of driving all around state of Connecticut, and was kind of like, this is stupid. So I started, kind of focusing on bodybuilding full time.
And over the 2 decades and longer in training, how has your overall philosophy of training evolved over that time?
Yep, good question. So in 2009, I met a guy who was a trainer down in Brooklyn, and he helped me get ready for my pro debut. So I competed in 2009 at the New York Pro, and there were a lot of really big names, really seasoned bodybuilders, veterans who were competing in that show. And I had a lot of, weight on my shoulders because a lot of people thought I was just going to be like a flash in the pan, like, oh yeah, okay, this kid turned pro really fast, but once he gets on stage with these guys who are like, big time bodybuilders, they're going to whip his ass, and that'll be the last we ever hear from him. Even, the magazine that I was under contract with at the time, my contract was up at the end of 2008, and at the beginning of 2009, they didn't even re-sign me. And I think because they didn't really think I was going to do well. Um, so I had a lot of pressure, and I was working with this guy in Brooklyn, and dude, he really kind of changed the way that I looked at training, because up to that point, I was going in the gym and I was certainly exerting myself. I mean, I was no joke. I was a big dude. I was good enough to be the best amateur in the country.
Right.
But he kind of opened my eyes to what it would take to be a contender at a professional level. And the amount of intensity and the amount of exertion and the amount of dedication and sacrifice that I would have to bring to the table, he kind of illuminated all that to me. And it was an eye opener. But I ended up going in and winning my pro debut. And that for me really kind of put me on a good path. That kind of really raised my stock as a bodybuilder. But yeah, to your point, I think probably most professionals, when they're in the midst of kind of having like an aha moment, something opens their eyes and sheds light on the amount of intensity they're going to have to dedicate to their venture, in whatever field they happen to be in.
Right. Then I think that's a good point. And I think the common misconception is, oh, he's a bodybuilder, not you specifically, but oh, this person is a bodybuilder. They go to the gym, they just eat whatever they want just to gain weight, and they take a bunch of steroids and they win. Right. What does it actually take? Because and in full disclosure, Evan is my trainer as well too. So he has me on a program, and I know what it takes. When you say going to Sunday dinners, like I go to a Sunday dinner and I pack chicken, and my family sits there and looks at me and says, "What is wrong with you?" Right?
Yeah.
That's just a small piece. Now, on a competitive level, what does that actually take?
Well, I can't speak to what it takes for other people, because I will say there's some really gifted bodybuilders. You have some guys who come from, backgrounds. I think some of them can literally look at the weights and they can grow.
Right.
And, they're able to maybe be a little bit more lax with their diet. But again, my assessment of lax is through a different lens. So for me, man, bodybuilding is a really unique sport in that it doesn't stop. Yes, you have a off season, but it's not like an off season in other sports where I think guys are able to rest, relax, take a break from it. Bodybuilding never stops, dude. It's a 24/7 venture. Even sleep is calculated. I mean, that is a part of you achieving your goals. So, you're either in the gym giving 100%, or you're making absolute certain that all the things you're doing outside of the gym are ensuring your success. It's one of those things where everything is counted, everything is measured. You're on all the time. But that's something that I think has really helped me in life in general and anything else that I've pursued. To some degree, man, after bodybuilding, everything is kind of easy.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I can imagine. Now,
Because bodybuilding is it's brutal, not only physically, but mentally. It takes a certain person who has maybe, I hate to paint a picture that makes it sound unhealthy, but I think anyone who's successful in any career, I mean, really, really successful, there has to be a certain amount of obsession.
yeah,
It
sure.
has to be, you have to eat, breathe, and sleep it. It has to be on your mind all the time. You have to wake up at 2 in the morning and maybe sometimes struggle to go back to sleep because it is on your mind. And you don't care. I remember getting dragged out to the Hamptons in college, to go party with my friends. And dude, I didn't care. I was literally sitting there looking at my watch. I couldn't wait to go home thinking, honestly, dude, I would rather be home right now, uh, working out, whether it was in a gym, in a basement. It's the only thing I cared about. And I think that's really the only way that I was able to become successful at it. And I think people who achieve incredible success in any area of life, it's because it's just that's what they care about.
I agree wholeheartedly with that. That's a good assessment. Um, can you walk us through? So obviously you said there's off season and then there's on season. So when you say off season, I'm assuming you're talking bulking.
Yeah, so for me, an off season always consisted of trying to put the maximum amount of size, add as much muscle tissue to my frame as possible, get as big and as strong as I can, so that when it comes time to prepare for the next competition, I can retain that size while I bring my body fat down as low as possible. I guess, to really put it in a nutshell.
What are we talking about here? What's big? How big? How much did you weigh at your height?
I mean, at my absolute biggest, I was 318 pounds. I'm 5'11", and that's 318, but that's first thing in the morning. Okay, that's like empty stomach. I just took a leak, so that's not even at the end of the day full. That's
Right.
me standing naked first thing in the morning on a scale. I was big. I took up a lot of space. I remember at the time having friends, and they'd be like, "Dude, I can feel how big you are. Like when you're next to me, I can feel your size."
That's great.
Yeah.
And now, what does that diet look like to get to 318 pounds or to gain that mass? What are you eating? How many calories a day as a bodybuilder?
I mean, people tend to inflate some of the numbers that, eating 10,000 calories a day. I don't think I ever ate anywhere near close to that, but probably around 6,000 or so calories a day. And that's a lot of food, man.
Yeah.
It was, I don't tend to, I'm not someone who eats a ton of red meat, but I was eating red meat every day, half a dozen eggs in the morning, uh, you know, mostly whole food, but also putting in a couple shakes throughout the day. Dude, my day revolved around eating. Um, it was just nothing could disrupt. I mean, I went probably 2 years straight and I did not miss a meal. No matter where I went, dude, I had my food. Like I took it so seriously. I was hell bent
Right.
on doing it to the best of my ability.
Well, that's why you won, right?
It's why I won. But I think of one of the most important things I can impress upon people is dedicating your best efforts to whatever your process is. Okay. You might succeed, you might fail, you probably won't fail. Let's be honest. If you are dedicating that much time and energy and focus to your process, the odds of you failing are very slim. But you may not always, like, for me, as going into a competition, there were times where I went in thinking, well, dude, I'm up against some really incredible talent. We're talking about the best guys in the world. It's very possible that I'm not going to win. But if I dedicate myself 100% to my nutrition, to my training, to everything that I put into it, then I can know
Right.
that I gave it my all. And that doesn't sound like a lot. I know that sounds corny, that sounds cliche, but by giving your best every day, that builds confidence. One of the best things that my trainer ever said to me was that confidence comes from doing.
Right.
Right? When you do it every day, it gives you the confidence to say, well, yeah, I deserve this. Yes, I can go out and believe that I have the right to obtain it because I've worked for it. So if you don't put in the work, a lot of times it becomes difficult to develop that conviction.
Would you say that this mindset is directly correlates to business?
100%.
I agree.
100%. It's no different than being successful in any business. I never viewed myself as a bodybuilder. I happen to be in the business of bodybuilding, but I did approach it very much as a business. And I would say I got something right because, you know, I joined forces with a major supplement company in 2006. And
Right.
even though I haven't competed in over 7 or so years, I'm still with them to this day, um, because of the relationship that we built. And I think that's one of the most important parts in any business is really the relationships that you build.
Right. Now, from a career highlight perspective, what would you say top moment throughout your career?
Top moment was probably winning my pro debut. I mean, winning my first show
Yeah.
was a hell of a feeling. Like I said, seeing my dad go crazy in the crowd, um, going into it having no expectations, and honestly being kind of scared.
Yeah.
But my pro debut, because at that point, man, there was money on the line. There were a lot of people I saw just, at that time, it wasn't social media, but it was the online forums and message boards and all the people, talking shit and saying, oh, he's nobody, he's nothing. And me really feeling like I had something to prove. And I will tell you, dude, I killed myself for that show. I mean, I buried myself. I drove 2 hours a day down to Brooklyn. I sat in traffic 3 hours back. And in between, when I was there, I was getting obliterated physically. I was pushed to an extent that I'd never been pushed before physically. There were so many times where a workout would finish, and I couldn't wait for it to be over. And I would literally sit down on the floor. Wherever I finished my last set is where I would sit down on that floor. And then a second later, I'd be laying down on the floor. And probably within less than a minute, I would be asleep. I would be passed out and I would wake up, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes, a half hour later because I was so hungry. And I'd run in and heat my food and eat. And then I'd be driving home and I'd be eating on the way home. Dude, it was a really, really painful experience. And there were times when throughout it, I was like, why am I doing this? I don't know if I really want to do this. I don't know if I ever want to do this again.
Right.
So I remember winning that night and walking back to the hotel and literally feeling like, oh my God, I did it and I proved it. And literally the weight of the world is off of my shoulders.
You mentioned the obsession and the going through all this and the pain and the eating nonstop and having to live your life a completely different way than a normal person would. Do you think you had a choice to do that or not? Or do you think it's something that's in your brain that just ticks?
No, I think there's something that's maybe a little bit off about me, right? Like,
I don't think it's just you, by the way. I asked because I experienced the same thing. No,
listen, man, it couldn't have been. I wasn't motivated by money. There
right,
was no money in it.
right,
Literally, at the amateur level, there's nothing. And it's not like I was sitting there thinking, okay, here's my master plan. I'm going to turn professional and I'm going to make all
right,
this money. Because like there is not that much money to be made. So I was purely driven by it was just something I wanted.
right.
And yeah, you have to be a little bit nutty. It's not a normal thing. It's not a normal endeavor. But I don't think anything at an elite level, whether it's athletics, business, it's not normal. Um, and I think a lot of people, out of an innate desire to make themselves feel better about the fact that they don't push themselves to that extent, they'll say, well, that's unhealthy. Um, maybe a bodybuilder say, well, he has self-image problems, or he has an unhealthy relationship with food, or he's insecure, or whatever these things are. And the reality is, all these people making those comments, it'd be different if they themselves were the image of perfection. Don't kid yourself. Their personal lives are screwed up too. Their
Right.
relationships are messed up. They have image problems. So they have the same problems as everybody else, except they're just not as successful.
Right. I agree. What, if you could give, well, one, I guess it doesn't need to be one, but any set of pieces of advice to aspiring bodybuilders, what would that be?
I think whether it's an aspiring bodybuilder or any aspiring anything, you have to do it because you want to do it. You have to do it because there's something inside you that it drives you. There's this itch that you need to scratch. And I think all of us have something that we can be really, really passionate about. And I would encourage people to find what that is, because a lot of people get into different fields for the wrong reasons and they're not really passionate about it. They're doing it and say, well, I can make good money in that field, or the job has good benefits, or, well, I don't really know what else I'm going to do. And none of those are good reasons to pursue something. I think you have to really be crazy about whatever it is you choose to do, because it's the only way, A, you're ever going to have a shot of being really good at it. And B, it's the only way you're ever going to have a chance of feeling fulfilled and feeling like you have purpose in life.
Nice. Well said. So, I think recently you've gone into the financial sector of the business world.
Yeah.
Want to tell us a little bit about that, how you got started and how things are going?
Yeah. So, longtime friend of mine, been in the business a long time, was my advisor for many years. He's very, very good at what he does, very successful. And he always said to me, dude, when you're done with bodybuilding, come work with us. And it always stuck in my mind. And really, listen, there's nothing intrinsically exciting about the financial world, financial planning, financial advising. However, and it's really the same as training. Like when I coach someone online, right? I'm not selling them coaching. You're selling someone the opportunity to change themselves,
right,
and really to improve their lives. So the financial planning world for me, listen, I saw my father fight cancer for 6 years with a really, really grim prognosis. He had a lung cut out. He had, a sternotomy. He had a carotid artery removed. He went through all sorts of treatments, chemotherapy, radiation, multiple courses of each, experimental therapies. And thank God he pulled through. He ended up getting into a trial with an experimental drug, and it happened to work. But, my father, a week after having a lung cut out, was in the basement working. He repairs heavy machinery. He's a, if nothing else, it's a testament to his work ethic and really what an animal that he is. But he was down there working, and a lot of it was because he had to. And there's this because you've worked with me. There's things that can be put in place that should a person become sick.
Oh, there you go.
Put in place to protect their income. And I think had my father had that in place, I don't think he'd be down in his basement a week after having a lung removed.
Right.
And I looked at so many situations of people around me, people dying, and their spouses setting up GoFundMe accounts, and people who made all sorts of money, but maybe didn't do the proper planning with it. So in my mind, I said, geez, this is an opportunity to really help people improve their lives, change lives, whether it's because you're helping to mitigate risk or you're helping people to just get ahead. And that really, really appeals to me.
Yeah.
Because I really saw a need for it. This could be a need I saw not only in my own family, but in the industry that I was a part of. And I said, these, people I'm surrounded by, they need this. So that's really what drew me to it. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to see how much money I can make. That doesn't excite me so much, which isn't to say I don't like money, right? Money is great.
Right. Of course. Yep.
But it was more the opportunity. I can't derive my passion from money, but I can derive passion from helping people change their situation and seeing, a positive impact on people.
Yeah. And I think you said it well. And not only did you say it well, but you showcased that well. And that's rare. it's rare to be able to work with someone who does do that, where you can, I mean, you can genuinely tell you care, right?
Yeah.
It's always a great match when that happens.
You gotta care about the work you do. And I don't care what work that is. Okay. You don't have to be a CEO of a large corporation. You
Right.
could live, and I say this all the time. If I go to the grocery store and the person bagging my groceries does a good job, I'm impressed. I think that says a lot about that person, that they care. And I think there's a misconception. People think, well, once I'm getting paid more, then I'll care.
Right.
No, you care how you do anything, how you do everything.
Right.
Starts, it shines through, and no matter what you touch.
If anyone listening to this wants to get in touch with you, whether it's for training, whether it's for financial advice, what is the best way for them to reach out to you, and how can they?
Shoot me an email, Centopani. That's a tough name to spell, but Centopani at charteroakfinancial.com. You could find me on Instagram, just Evan Centopani, and send me a DM. It's it doesn't have to be. You don't have to make a decision to work with me. Meaning, I have conversations with people all the time. I don't know if they want to work with me. I don't know if I want to work with them. I don't know if there's work to be done.
Right.
But it's always worth a conversation to find out.
Awesome. Evan, thanks a lot for coming on the show, man. I really appreciate it.
Dude, thanks for having me. I can't wait to see. I know big things are coming from you. It's been awesome watching and see you grow, not only physically but as a businessman and in a professional capacity. And for all you viewers watching this guy, there's big things coming from this guy, and I'm excited for it.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. That means a lot. Thank you.